She had everything except herself. The day she walked away, she finally found what she'd been missing all along. Maya opened her eyes at exactly 6:30 in the morning. She didn't need an alarm anymore. Her body had learned the routine so well that it just knew when to wake up. The ceiling fan above her bed made the same creaking sound it always did. The morning light came through the curtains the same way. Everything was exactly as it had been yesterday, and the day before that, and probably the day before that too. She lay there for a moment, listening to David breathing beside her. He was still asleep, turned away from her, his back rising and falling in that steady rhythm. When was the last time they'd woken up facing each other? She couldn't remember. Funny how you stop noticing these small things until one day you do. Maya pushed herself out of bed and walked to the kitchen. Her feet knew the path even in the darkness. 12 steps from the bedroom door to the kitchen counter. She'd walked this path thousands of times. She filled the coffee maker with water, measured out the grounds, and pressed the button. While it brewed, she stood by the window and looked out at the street below. A few cars were already moving. People heading to early shifts. People with places to be. The coffee machine beeped. She poured herself a cup in the same blue mug she always used. The handle had a small chip on it from when she'd knocked it against the sink 2 years ago. She'd thought about replacing it but never did. That seemed to sum up a lot of things in her life lately. Things that needed changing but never got changed. David walked into the kitchen at 7:15 like always. He was already dressed in his work clothes, his hair still damp from the shower. "Morning," he said, not really looking at her. "Morning," she replied. He poured himself coffee, checked his phone, scrolled through something that made him frown. Maya watched him over the rim of her mug. When had they stopped really talking to each other? Not the did you pay the electric bill kind of talking, but the real kind. The kind where you share what's actually going on inside your head. "I've got that meeting today," David said, still looking at his phone. "Might be late." "Okay," Maya said. "There's leftover pasta in the fridge if you want it for dinner." "Okay." He kissed her on the cheek, grabbed his keys, and left. The door clicked shut behind him. Maya stood in the kitchen with her coffee, listening to the silence fill up the apartment. This was her life. This was what every day looked like. And somewhere deep inside, in a place she tried not to look at too closely, she felt absolutely nothing. She got ready for work on autopilot. The same black pants, the same white blouse, the same uncomfortable shoes that pinched her toes but looked professional. She'd bought them 3 years ago and kept meaning to replace them, but she never did. Another thing that stayed the same because change felt like too much work. The drive to the office took 23 minutes. She knew because she'd timed it once, and it never varied by more than a minute or two. She parked in her usual spot, walked through the glass doors, nodded at the security guard whose name she still didn't know after 5 years, and took the elevator to the 4th floor. Her cubicle was in the back corner, away from the windows. She'd requested a window seat when she first started, but someone with more seniority got it instead. That was 7 years ago. She'd stopped asking after that. "Hey, you okay?" Maya looked up. Her colleague Jennifer was leaning over the cubicle wall, holding a coffee cup with a motivational quote printed on it. Something about Mondays and coffee and staying positive. "Yeah, just tired," Maya said. She said this a lot. It was easier than explaining what she actually felt. "I hear you. This weather makes me want to hibernate," Jennifer said with a laugh. "Oh, the boss wants those reports by 3. Can you believe it? Like we don't have enough to do." Maya nodded and turned back to her computer screen. Numbers and spreadsheets and data that meant something to someone, but felt completely meaningless to her. She used to think accounting was a smart choice. Stable, reliable, good money, all the practical things her parents had told her to look for in a career. But sitting here, staring at these numbers, she couldn't remember the last time she felt excited about her work. Or excited about anything, really. Lunch was at 12:30. She ate the sandwich she'd packed that morning while scrolling through her phone. Social media showed her everyone else's highlight reel. Beach vacations and birthday parties and new cars and engagement rings. She double-tapped a few photos without really looking at them, then put her phone away. The afternoon dragged on. More spreadsheets, more data entry, more emails that said a lot without saying anything at all. At one point, her boss took credit for her idea in a meeting, and Maya just sat there and let it happen. What was the point of speaking up? It wouldn't change anything. She left the office at 5:47, The drive home was the same route in reverse. 23 minutes. She stopped at the grocery store and bought the same things she always bought. Bread, milk, chicken breast, vegetables that she'd probably let go bad in the crisper drawer. When she got home, David wasn't there yet. Late meeting, like he said. Maya put away the groceries and stood in the middle of the kitchen, not sure what to do with herself. The apartment was so quiet. When had it gotten so quiet? She walked to the bedroom and that's when she saw it. A cardboard box in the corner of the closet. One of those moving boxes they'd never fully unpacked when they moved in 3 years ago. She'd walked past it 1,000 times without really seeing it. But today, for some reason, it caught her attention. Maya pulled the box out and opened it. Old books. A scarf her grandmother had given her. Some photos from college. And underneath it all, a journal. Her journal. The one she used to write in almost every day when she was 22. She sat on the floor and opened it to a random page. The handwriting was hers, but felt like it belonged to a stranger. This younger version of herself wrote about dreams and plans and all the things she was going to do. She was going to travel. She was going to become a photographer. She was going to live in different cities and meet interesting people and create art that mattered. Maya flipped through more pages. More dreams, more passion, more certainty that life was full of possibilities. When had she stopped believing in all of this? When had she traded her camera for a calculator? When had she stopped being the person who wrote these words? She found an entry from the week she met David. She'd written about how charming he was, how stable he seemed, how different he was from the unpredictable guys she usually dated. He feels like safety, she'd written. He feels like someone I could build a real life with. And she had built a life with him. But somewhere along the way, she'd stopped building herself. The journal fell from her hands. Maya sat there on the bedroom floor, surrounded by boxes of her past, and felt something crack open inside her chest. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was just a quiet realization, like finally admitting something she'd known all along but had been too afraid to say out loud. She couldn't remember the last time she'd laughed. Really laughed. The kind that makes your stomach hurt. She couldn't remember the last time she'd done something just because she wanted to, not because it was practical or expected or the responsible thing to do. She couldn't remember the last time she'd looked in the mirror and recognized the person staring back at her. David came home at 8:30. She heard his keys in the door, his footsteps in the hallway. She was still sitting on the bedroom floor. "Maya, you home?" She didn't answer right away. She was too busy reading one more entry from her journal, a line she'd written when she was 23, right before she'd decided to major in accounting instead of photography. "Today I chose the safe path. I hope I don't regret it." A single tear rolled down her cheek, then another. And in that moment, sitting on the floor with her old journal in her hands, Maya understood something she'd been running from for years. She had regretted it. Every single day. The next few days passed like they always did, but everything felt different now. Maya went through her routine, did her work, came home, made dinner. But that crack in her chest hadn't closed. If anything, it was getting wider. She started noticing things she'd trained herself not to see. Like how David never actually asked her how her day was. He'd say, "How was work?" But he'd already be walking away or looking at his phone before she could answer. She realized she'd stopped bothering to give real answers years ago. On Wednesday evening, they were having dinner. Chicken and rice, something simple. David was talking about his job, about this guy in his department who kept messing up reports, about how his boss might promote him if the quarterly numbers looked good. Maya ate her food and listened, waiting for him to pause, waiting for him to ask her something, anything. He didn't. When he finished eating, he took his plate to the sink and said, "I'm going to watch the game." Then he was gone, settled on the couch with the TV volume up loud. Maya sat at the table alone, looking at her half-eaten dinner. How many meals had they had like this? How many conversations where only one person actually spoke? She couldn't count them. There were too many. That night, after David had gone to bed, Maya stayed up late looking through old photos on her laptop. She found pictures from college. From that year, she'd spent taking photography classes before she switched majors. Her younger self smiled out from the screen, holding a camera, covered in paint from some art project, laughing with friends at some party she barely remembered. In every photo, her eyes looked alive, bright, full of energy. She looked like someone who believed the world was full of good things just waiting to be discovered. Maya opened a new tab and looked at her reflection in the black screen. She looked tired, older than her years. Her eyes were dull, like someone had turned down the brightness. When had that happened? When had she stopped looking like herself? The days blurred together. Work was still work. Home was still home. But Maya couldn't shake the feeling that she was watching her life from the outside, like she was an actor playing the role of herself but forgetting all her lines. On Saturday, David wanted to go to his mother's house for lunch. They did this twice a month. His mother would make pot roast and his father would complain about politics and his sister would talk about her kids and Maya would sit there, smiling and nodding, feeling like a piece of furniture. "Can we skip it this week?" Maya asked. David looked up from his phone, surprised. "Skip it? Why?" I don't really feel like going. My mom's expecting us. She bought that fancy bread you like." "I never said I liked that bread. Your mom just thinks I do." David frowned. "What's wrong with you lately?" "Nothing. I just don't want to go to lunch." Well, I already told her we're coming. It would be rude to cancel now. And just like that, the decision was made. Not by Maya. For Maya. Like every other decision in their life together. They went to lunch. Maya smiled and nodded and ate the pot roast and the fancy bread she didn't actually like. David's mother talked about the neighbor's new car, and his father complained about the mayor, and his sister showed everyone pictures of her daughter's ballet recital. Nobody asked Maya anything except, "Could you pass the salt?" On the drive home, Maya looked out the window and thought about all the weekends she'd spent exactly like this. Doing things other people wanted to do. Going places other people wanted to go. Living a life other people had chosen for her. "I want to do something different next weekend," she said quietly. "Like what?" David asked, eyes on the road. "I don't know. Maybe go hiking. Or visit that art museum downtown. Or just something we haven't done before." David laughed. "Since when do you hike?" "You hate being outside." "I never said I hate being outside. You're always complaining about bugs and heat, and that's not the same as hating being outside." Okay. We'll see. I might have to work next Saturday anyway." "We'll see." That's what he always said when he meant no, but didn't want to start an argument. Maya had learned to translate his language over the years. "We'll see" meant no. "Maybe" meant no. "I'll think about it" meant no. "Let me check my schedule" meant no. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She lay in bed listening to David snore and felt something building up inside her. It wasn't anger exactly. It was bigger than that. More complicated. It felt like 7 years of small disappointments all piling up at once, getting heavier and heavier until she could barely breathe under the weight of them. She got out of bed and went to the living room. She turned on a lamp and just sat there in the quiet, thinking about her life, really thinking about it for the first time in years. She thought about how she'd given up photography because it wasn't practical, how she'd moved to this city because it was good for David's career, how she'd stopped seeing her friends because they didn't really fit with the couple friends they'd made together, how she'd let her mother talk her out of going back to school, how she'd learned to shrink herself smaller and smaller to fit into the life everyone else thought she should have. And the worst part? She'd done it all willingly. Nobody had forced her. She'd made every single choice that led her here. But had she really chosen them? Or had she just been too tired to fight back? The breaking point came 2 weeks later. It was their 7th wedding anniversary. David made reservations at this fancy Italian place downtown without asking what she wanted. He'd always been like that, making plans and assuming she'd be happy with whatever he chose. They got dressed up. Maya wore the black dress she always wore to nice dinners. David wore his suit. They looked like the perfect couple. Maybe that was the problem. They looked perfect on the outside while everything on the inside was slowly dying. At dinner, David ordered wine without asking which kind she preferred. He got the Cabernet. She didn't like Cabernet. It was too heavy, too bitter. But she didn't say anything. She just drank it and tried to smile. 7 years, David said, raising his glass. Hard to believe, right? Yeah, Maya said. Hard to believe. He started talking about his promotion. He'd finally gotten it, the one he'd been chasing for 2 years. He was going to be a senior manager now. More money, more responsibility, more late nights at the office. Maya listened to him talk and realized something that made her stomach twist. He hadn't asked her anything all night. Not one question about her day, her thoughts, her feelings. It was their anniversary and he was talking about himself like she wasn't even there. "I've been thinking," Maya said, interrupting him mid-sentence, "about making some changes." David looked at her, confused. "Changes? What kind of changes?" "I don't know exactly. Maybe going back to school, or taking some photography classes again." "I used to love photography." David laughed, not meanly, but like she'd just told a funny joke. "Honey, you haven't touched a camera in years." "I know. That's kind of the point. I gave it up and I shouldn't have." "You gave it up because you chose accounting. Nobody forced you." "I chose accounting because everyone told me photography wasn't realistic. But maybe I should have listened to what I actually wanted." David set down his wine glass. He looked at her with that expression he got when he was about to be patient with her, like she was a child who needed something explained in simple terms. "We all have dreams, Maya. Little things we think we want. But that's what hobbies are for. You can't build a life on dreams. You need stability, security. You need to be practical." Those words hit her like cold water. Little dreams. That's what he called them. The things that made her feel alive were just little dreams, not worth taking seriously. Not worth changing anything for. "What if I don't want to be practical anymore?" she asked quietly. "What does that even mean?" "It means I feel like I'm suffocating, David. Like I can't breathe. Like I've been pretending to be someone I'm not for so long that I don't even know who I am anymore." He reached across the table and patted her hand. Actually patted it like she was a dog who needed reassuring. "You're just stressed. Work's been tough lately, I know. Tell you what, why don't we take a long weekend next month? Go somewhere nice. You'll feel better." Maya pulled her hand back. "I don't want a long weekend. But she stopped. Because sitting there, looking at his confused face, she realized he would never understand. He didn't want to understand. Understanding would mean changing things. And change was messy and complicated, and David had never liked messy or complicated. They finished dinner in near silence. David tried to talk about other things, but Maya had stopped listening. Something had hardened inside her chest during that conversation, something sharp and clear and impossible to ignore. She excused herself to go to the bathroom, stood in front of the mirror and looked at herself in her black dress with her nice makeup and her fake smile. And for the first time in 7 years, she felt something other than numbness. She felt angry, not the yelling, throwing things kind of angry. Worse, the cold, clear kind of angry that changes everything. The kind that makes you see the truth you've been hiding from. The kind that makes you realize you can't keep living like this, not even for one more day. Maya walked back to the table. David was checking his phone, probably work emails even on their anniversary. She sat down and watched him, really looked at him and understood something important. He wasn't a bad person. He hadn't done anything terrible. But Maya started making plans, and planning felt like waking up from a long sleep. Every small step felt huge. Every decision felt like she was taking back pieces of herself that she'd given away. The first thing she did was open a new bank account. She did it on her lunch break, at a bank across town where nobody knew her. The woman at the desk asked what kind of account she wanted, and Maya said checking. Just checking. Something simple. Something that was only hers. She started moving small amounts of money from their joint account into her new one. Not enough that David would notice. Just a little each week. It felt strange, almost like she was doing something wrong. But this was her money too. Her paychecks went into that joint account just like his did. She was just setting some aside. Just in case. At work, during slow afternoons, she searched for apartments online, small studios, one-bedroom places, anything she could afford on just her salary. The numbers were scary. Rent was expensive. She'd gotten used to splitting everything with David, and now she was looking at paying for everything alone. But seeing those listings, imagining herself in those small spaces, made something flutter in her chest. Hope, maybe, or excitement. She couldn't tell. She hadn't felt either one in so long. One day her colleague Jennifer caught her looking at apartment listings. "You moving?" Jennifer asked. Maya closed her laptop quickly. "Just looking." Jennifer sat down on the edge of Maya's desk. She lowered her voice. "You okay? And don't say you're just tired." "You've been saying that for weeks." Maya looked at her. Jennifer had worked at the office for 3 years. They'd had lunch together a few times. They weren't close friends, but they were friendly. And right then, Maya needed to tell someone, anyone. I'm leaving my husband, Maya said quietly. She'd never said it out loud before. The words felt strange in her mouth, scary, but also real in a way that thinking them had never been. Jennifer's eyes went wide. Oh, wow. Are you okay? I don't know. Maybe I think so. Does he know? Not yet, Jennifer nodded slowly. How long have you been thinking about this? I don't know. Maybe always? But seriously, just the past few weeks, and can I tell you something? Jennifer leaned in closer. I've been waiting for you to wake up. Maya blinked. What? I see how you are. At work, I mean. You're like this ghost of a person. Like you're here, but not really here. And I've met David a few times at office parties. He seems, I don't know, like he doesn't really see you. Like you could be anyone and it wouldn't matter to him. Maya felt tears building up. I thought I was going crazy. Like maybe I was just being dramatic or ungrateful or, you're not crazy. Trust me, I was married before this. Left him 5 years ago. Best thing I ever did? Really? Really, it's hard. It's really hard. But living like you're slowly disappearing is harder. They talked for a while longer. Then Jennifer wrote down the name of her divorce lawyer on a sticky note. Just in case, she said. She's good, fair. Won't take any nonsense from the other side. Maya kept that sticky note in her wallet. Some days she'd take it out and just look at it. A divorce lawyer. She was really doing this. She also pulled her old camera out of the closet. It was dusty and the battery was dead, but it still worked once she charged it. On her lunch breaks, she started taking it with her. She'd walk to the park near the office and just take pictures. Trees, people on benches, dogs running. Whatever caught her eye. At first, her photos were terrible. She was rusty. She'd forgotten how to frame things, how to work with light. But she kept practicing, and slowly, something came back to her. That feeling of seeing the world through the lens, that sense of capturing a moment and making it mean something. She started an account on social media just for her photos. Not her personal account where David and all their couple friends could see. A new one separate just for this. She posted a few pictures and didn't expect much. But people liked them. Strangers from all over started following her. Someone commented that her work felt raw and honest. Someone else said they could feel the emotion in her images. Maya sat in her car reading these comments and cried. Happy tears this time. Someone saw something in her work. Someone understood what she was trying to say. She wasn't invisible anymore. The next big step was talking to a lawyer. Maya took a long lunch one day and drove to the address Jennifer had given her. The office was small and professional. The lawyer's name was Rachel, and she was probably in her 50s with short gray hair and kind eyes. Tell me what's going on, Rachel said. Maya told her everything. The 7 years of marriage, the slow erosion of herself, the feeling of suffocating, the realization that she needed to leave. Rachel listened without interrupting, just taking notes occasionally. When Maya finished, Rachel set down her pen. First thing I want you to know, what you're feeling is valid. Second thing, this is going to be hard. Divorce is always hard, but it's also sometimes necessary. They talked about logistics, assets, the apartment, their shared accounts. Rachel explained what Maya should prepare for, what documents she'd need, what the process would look like. It was overwhelming, but it was also concrete. Real steps. A path forward. Do you have somewhere to go? Rachel asked. When you're ready to leave? I've been looking at apartments. Good, get one lined up. And don't tell him until you're ready to move out. If he's going to react badly, you want to have a safe place already secured. Maya nodded. Do you think I'm doing the right thing? Rachel smiled sadly. I can't answer that. But I can tell you that in 20 years of being a divorce lawyer, I've never had a client come back and tell me they regretted leaving an unhappy marriage. I've had a lot of them tell me they wished they'd done it sooner. That night, Maya lay in bed next to David and thought about everything. The apartment she'd looked at that morning, the new bank account with her small savings, the lawyer's business card in her wallet, the camera in her bag, all these little pieces of her escape plan. David shifted in his sleep, his arm flopping over to her side of the bed. She looked at his face, peaceful and unknowing. Part of her felt guilty. Another part felt sad for both of them, for how they'd lost each other somewhere along the way without even noticing. But the biggest part, the part that had been growing stronger every day, felt determined. She was really going to do this. The apartment she'd been looking at called her back. It was available. Small, just one bedroom, on the third floor of an old building with creaky stairs. The landlord showed it to her on a Saturday morning while David was at the gym. It smelled a little like old wood, and the kitchen was tiny, and the bathroom tile was probably from the 1970s. It was perfect. "I'll take it," Maya said. The landlord looked surprised. "Don't you want to think about it? Bring your husband to see it?" "No, I'll take it." "When can I move in?" "First of the month." "That's 2 weeks away. I'll need first and last month's rent plus security deposit." Maya did the math in her head. It would clean out her savings account almost completely, but she had enough. "Just barely, but enough. Okay," she said. "Let's do the paperwork." She signed the lease in the landlord's office, her hand shaking slightly as she wrote her name. Just her name. Not hers and David's, just Maya. That felt significant somehow. Like she was signing herself back into existence. The next 2 weeks were the longest of her life. She kept the apartment key in her purse, touching it occasionally like a talisman. She started packing slowly, carefully. Just small things at first. Clothes she knew David wouldn't notice were missing. Personal items, photos, books. She put them in boxes in the back of her closet, labeling them as donations in case David looked. She wrote a letter. It took her 3 days and probably 20 drafts. How do you explain something this big? How do you tell someone you've shared 7 years with that you're leaving? She tried to be honest without being cruel. Tried to explain her feelings without blaming him for everything. Because it wasn't all his fault. She'd let things get this way too. She'd been just as responsible for their slow decay. The final version was 2 pages long. She put it in an envelope and hid it in her car. Then she picked a day. Saturday, October 15th. David had a golf game that morning. He'd be gone for at least 4 hours. That would be enough time. The night before, Maya barely slept. She lay there, listening to David breathe, and thought about everything that had led to this moment. 7 years of marriage, 7 years of slowly disappearing, and now in just a few hours she was going to take herself back. When the alarm went off, David got up and ready for his golf game just like always. He was in a good mood, talking about the weather being perfect, about how he was going to beat his friend Tom this time. "What are you doing today?" he asked, pulling on his golf shoes. "Just errands," Maya said. "Maybe some cleaning." "Okay, I'll probably grab lunch with the guys after. See you this afternoon." He kissed her on the cheek, grabbed his clubs, and left. Maya sat on the edge of the bed, listening to his car pull out of the driveway. Then she stood up and started moving. She'd already packed most of her important things. Now she just grabbed them from the closet and started loading them into her car. Clothes, books, her camera, her laptop. She didn't take much. Didn't want much. Just the things that were really hers. The apartment felt strange as she walked through it one last time. 7 years of her life in these rooms. She'd cooked thousands of meals in that. The first night in her new apartment was the hardest. Maya sat on the floor because she didn't have furniture yet, eating takeout from a container, and the silence was so loud it hurt. No TV in the background. No David moving around in another room. Just her and 4 empty walls. Her phone started ringing around 6 p.m. David's name flashing on the screen. She let it go to voicemail. Then he called again. And again. On the 4th call, she turned her phone completely off. She knew he'd found the letter. She could picture him standing in their kitchen, reading it. Probably confused at first, then angry. She'd tried to explain everything in that letter. But how do you really explain something like this? How do you make someone understand when they've never really listened before? That night she couldn't sleep. She lay on her air mattress, staring at the ceiling, second-guessing everything. Maybe she'd made a mistake. Maybe she should have tried harder. Maybe she was just being selfish, like her mother would definitely say. Maybe David would change if she gave him another chance. But then she remembered sitting at dinner on their anniversary, trying to talk about her feelings and having him pat her hand and tell her she just needed a vacation. She remembered 7 years of feeling invisible, 7 years of shrinking herself smaller and smaller. And she knew, even scared and alone on an air mattress in an empty apartment, that she'd made the right choice. The next morning, she turned her phone back on. 17 missed calls, 12 text messages. She read through them, watching David's emotions spiral through the messages. The first ones were confused. "Where are you?" "Call me," then worried. "Maya, I'm getting scared." "Are you okay? What's going on?" Then angry. "How could you do this? After everything we've built together." Then bargaining. Please come home. We can talk about this. Whatever's wrong, we can fix it. The last one just said, I don't understand. That last message hurt the most because it was true. He didn't understand. He probably never would. And that wasn't really his fault or hers. They'd just become two people living parallel lives that never actually touched anymore. She texted back, I'm safe. I need space. Please respect that. I'll contact you through my lawyer about next steps. Then she blocked his number. Not forever, but for now. She needed time to breathe without the constant buzzing of his attempts to pull her back. The next few weeks were a strange mix of liberation and terror. Maya had to figure out how to be a person again, not just half of a couple. Simple things felt complicated, like she'd been ordering pizza for one instead of two, and somehow that felt momentous. Or she'd watched TV shows David would have hated and felt guilty, before remembering she didn't have to feel guilty anymore. She bought furniture slowly. A cheap couch from a secondhand store, a table and chairs from someone on Craigslist. She hung her photos on the walls, the ones she'd been taking with her old camera. Looking at them made her feel something. Pride, maybe. Or just recognition, like she was finally seeing herself again. Work was awkward. People had noticed she wasn't wearing her wedding ring. Jennifer knew the whole story, but everyone else was just speculating. Maya heard the whispers in the break room, saw the looks people gave her. The office manager had asked if everything was okay, and Maya had just said personal matters and left it at that. Her family was harder. She called her sister first because they'd always been close. You left David? Lily said, her voice high with disbelief. Maya, what happened? Did he cheat? No, nothing like that. Then why? You guys seemed so happy, had they? Maya tried to remember the last time she'd actually been happy. Not just looked happy from the outside. She couldn't pinpoint a moment. We weren't happy, Maya said. We were just comfortable, and I realized comfort isn't the same as happiness. But 7 years, Maya, that's a long time to just throw away. I'm not throwing it away. I'm just moving forward. Lily was quiet for a